Ooh, succubus ladies. Oh, so welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. Apologies if I sound a little bit strange or a little bit weird. I think I caught a head cold or something. I don't know, man. It's been so long since I've actually been sick, I can't keep track of what I have. I just know I feel like crap, but I really want to record some more RPG horror stories. And with that, let's get to our first RPG horror story for today. Edgelord player refuses to break character during breaks and downtime. I went to a Hammerhead game store last night and overall had a lot of fun. But the guy I sat next to was so freaking weird, bro. He played this dark elf wizard, which I'd usually be fine with, but he took it way too far. First, he didn't even meet a lot of the requirements. He didn't have a mini, he had an evil character, but the DM was nice so he let it slide. But then more red flags popped up. For one, he spoke in his deadpan voice and calling us mortals, like an edgy 12-year-old on a COD lobby. And he also said he doesn't want to remember our names, which I thought was rude as hell. He said that he had no empathy, which made my eyes roll to the back of my head. He heavily hinted that his character was racist towards dwarves, and there was also a dwarf player in the party. He also made vague threats to every party member, especially me, because I was sitting next to him. And then he had the audacity to call my character edgy. Sure, he was pretty edgy, but that was so freaking rich coming from a guy whose character is a racist pyromaniac. I really hope he doesn't come back next week. Jesus Christ, like the guy just embodies edge, holy shit. You should probably just call him Shadow, as in Shadow the Hedgehog. Ow, the edge. It's one thing to have an edgy character, and it's fine to have a little bit of edge. I mean, I think Morrow has a little bit of edge in him, just a tiny little bit. Maybe not edgy, but maybe a little bit of nihilism and cynicism, just a tiny bit. But there are some edgy characters that really just kind of want to push the boundary. The one thing though, the title says that he was edgy even out of game, which is really strange. I really hope he didn't do that because that'd be so cringe. Imagine you playing the game and the DM is like, okay, we're gonna call like a 30-minute break for now, so everybody get some water and stuff like that, go stretch and stuff if you want to. I gotta go to the back. And then you just start to have a conversation with the guy saying, so hey Jake, what do you think of the game so far? Well, you weaklings are keeping me behind. I can't believe that I have to mess with your party. Right, Jake, but I mean, what do you think of the game? Are you liking the DM so far? Is it cool? It's adequate, but it's definitely holding me back. I know I could be more powerful and accomplish more things, but I have to hold on to you mortals in a party. Jake, are you still talking in character or is this out of character? I really can't tell. If you have anything interesting you want to say, think of it first before wasting my time. All right, Jake, I'm just gonna go. Be normal over there. Jake, you're real fucking weird. Well, whatever's going on with Jake, I don't know what's gonna happen to him, but I hope you don't have to run into this Jake guy again. And having the audacity to call somebody edgy, dude. Pot calling the kettle black. If you're gonna be edgy, be self-aware. Whatever character you make, at least make it self-aware, because there's nothing more cringe than being an unself-aware edgelord. You think you're the coolest, hottest thing in a room, but instead you just cringe and you just make everybody feel uncomfortable because you're just so goddamn cringy and you're impossible to have a conversation with. Listen, if you're gonna be edgy or you're gonna be cringy or whatever, at least be self-aware of the edge and cringe, or play up into it. Have everybody else have fun with it. Have fun with being edgy and cringy. Be aware that you're doing this and just have a good time. It's much worse if you're like edgy without being self-aware and you think you're actually unironically cool and hot shit and everything. Is just ugh, it's weird. Let's get to the next story for today. Screw the lore. I have the power of lore and memes on my side. It is not an original or new idea to play a game where every character is from a different universe. I decided to do this with a semi-new group of players that I met at a game store, which I started to frequent every other weekend. I told my players that we were going to be using Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition, and I gave everyone who was interested a list of established universes from which they were allowed to choose to create their original character. I had quite an extensive list of 70 different universes spanning video games, tabletop games, books, comics, and anime. My only real rule was that no more than 2 players could come from the same universe. I had 2 players come from the Warhammer 40k universe, and both of them were Imperium Space Marines. Whoa, starting off with a power scaling of really high. You don't even have just like 1 war crime walking around, you have 2 war crimes walking around. I mean, cool as hell, but the balancing scale would be insane. I had 7 players and informed them that the prologue of the game would be done individually. This approach would help me teach each person how the system works on a one-on-one basis and introduce how their characters got to the situation. The player in question, whom we will name Hootie, was one of the Warhammer 40k players. Now, I enjoy Warhammer 40k, and I understand much about the nuances, complications, and multifaceted issues that occur within the lore. I do not consider myself an expert on the subject because I know that certain things elude me. If I were running a game set in a world of Warhammer 40k, I would adhere more closely to the lore of the universe than I did. Throughout the game, whenever I messed up something important about the Warhammer 40k universe, Hootie would correct me. Sometimes I would say thank you. Other times, I would subtly hint that I was changing certain things due to the situation that the players were in, and it became an annoyance for the other players. I told him some of the other players asked him to stop doing that because it ruined surprise for them, trying to figure out if something is as it should be or if something is off due to the situation. He took that a little hard, but understood where the other players were coming from and promised to behave themselves. I understand if you have like a personal world or lore that you're really into, but at times if you're playing a TTRPG, you always have to remember the etiquette at the table. For example, I'm currently part of my friend's Destiny D&D campaign, where we play D&D system, but it's in a Destiny universe, like Destiny the Traveler, Destiny 2, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I am not a huge buff when it comes to the Destiny universe, but we do have a player in there, lives and breathes Destiny. He's a real cool guy, real cool dude, and he's a font of knowledge and lore, and it's incredible, honestly. Our DM, my buddy Micah, that shows up in our videos and everything, he is also a lore buff, but he's changing a little bit of the lore when it comes to trying to play our game, because it would be a little bit more interesting to have a little bit of twists and turns as our characters are making through the desolate world of basically destroyed Earth. And some things in minor ways have been adjusted and changed on how things are progressing, the time period and everything. The two lore buddies, the DM and the other guy, they don't really bring up the lore whatsoever because they understand this is a fictional universe. It's kind of like a derivative of the original universe, and it's fine to change things up for the sake of fun. There's nothing wrong with changing the lore slightly or tweak it a little bit, or change it in maybe some grandiose ways to give it a little bit of a twist, a little bit of things here and there. If everything just kept within canon lore, then I mean, everybody already knows what's going to happen and everything. It's kind of difficult to surprise people with stuff. I don't know, man. I mean, I understand if people really love the lore and stuff, but if you're playing a fictional game with things changing a slight bit, just roll with it and see what it's like. If you don't like the huge lore changes, you could always drop out. But don't be this guy that goes like, actually, I read the Imperium lore and the planet of Poople Land never existed in the Imperium command. Don't do that. Like, if the DM is cooking, let him cook for a little bit, right? Don't interrupt for the sake of interrupting. Like, I get the DM is cooking, let him cook, you know? I told him some of the other players asked him to stop doing that because it ruins the surprise for them, trying to figure out if something is as it should be or if something is off to the situation. He took that a little too hard, but understood where the other players were coming from and promised to behave himself. I also asked him to refrain from constantly quoting his favorite memes, as some of the other players started to think it was monotonous for a character that had a lot of work put into it otherwise. The memes he quoted were mostly relatively niche ones. Screw the rules, I have money, and I have the power of God and anime on my side. He would paraphrase them to fit Warhammer 40k universe, but he did this multiple times a session for 8 hours, and will play for 6 to 8 hours at a time. He agreed to tone it down. Have you ever played a game with somebody and all they do is regurgitate memes on other people's memes? I was in a situation one time where I was playing Halo with somebody. I think it was Halo Infinite or Halo Reach, or I don't know. The entire 3 hours, there was a group of dudes that would not stop regurgitating Russian Badger's memes and quotes. It's just like, guys, I get it. You like Russian Badger. I think Russian Badger is cool too. But regurgitating their memes and quotes for 3 hours is gonna get everybody a headache. Please stop. We need some more fresh memes to laugh at. That's what I want. I want to look this year. I want to find more fresh memes to like have fun with. After 2 years worth of sessions, congrats. The campaign was finally coming to a close. It was time for the epilogues. I wanted to do something special for each character, as logically all of these characters would have changed both morally, emotionally, and sometimes even mentally. In private, I asked them what elements they wanted to incorporate within their epilogue that would make sense for their character and reflect their progress throughout the course of the campaign. I told them that I was going to be incorporating some of their own elements within the epilogues. They agreed to this, and none of them mentioned or even looked like they had a problem with me doing that. 2 of them even expressed that it was only fair for me to incorporate some elements into the epilogue since they had a lot to say in. The epilogues would be where they actually get a chance to play them out. The other Warhammer 40k player, let's call him Throne, said that he had spoken to Hootie, and they both agreed they would like an individual epilogue as well as an epilogue that is both for them, since they were the only players that came from the same universe. I agreed under the condition that I would start with a joint epilogue at the beginning and then split them off. They also agreed not to tell each other what they had talked to me about regarding every character's individual epilogues, so that way it would still be a surprise. I decided, in the sake of fairness, to draw every player's name out of a hat to determine who would go and what order when I reached the epilogue, while treating both Thorn and Hooty as one. When I got to them, I started off with them entering through a portal back to the Imperium together. However, both of them found themselves in a version of the Imperium, and they did not know which one at first. Once I split them off, Hooty wanted something more in line with the lore of Warhammer 40k, where he treats the events of the campaign as just one strange dream. He simply returned back to being who he was, a soldier going to war and trying to eliminate anything that wasn't human. As he continued thinking about the dream itself, he then submitted himself to the will of the Inquisition. Most of that was his idea. The problem arose with the epilogue that was created for Thorn's character. Thorn wanted to revert the way things were, but he found it impossible. Upon discovering the truth behind the Imperium, who could no longer bring himself to serve and instead became a symbol of change. Shortly thereafter, he formed a rebellion against the Imperium for their transgressions. I provided detailed information on how he managed to influence the hearts and minds of some high-ranking members of the Imperium to join his rebellion. I concluded the narrative with both Thorn and Hooty coming face to face, even though they had once fought side by side against a threat that did not exist in their own home universe. Hooty's minor issue with the epilogue for Thorn's character stemmed from the fact that Thorn's story diverged significantly from the established lore of Warhammer 40k, deviating into a rebellion storyline that Hooty felt wasn't consistent with the universe's intricacies, since Thorn's character didn't fall to chaos. Are we about to have a brawl between the two Warhammer 40k players? Is that what's happening? I mean, having a rebellion within the Imperium, I could see being kind of realistic. There's some people that are probably going to be like, man, I'm sick and tired of the Imperium. I want to start my own Imperium with blackjack and hookers and not chaos. I mean, I'm assuming there probably were some rebel groups out there that didn't fall to chaos. Though at the same time, I gotta be honest, I don't know my lore extensively with Warhammer 40k, but I could see how a rebellion group would just spring up out of nowhere with such a big Imperium. I could see a lot of rebellion groups spring up with different factions for the sake of, except maybe the Tyranids. They're kind of like a hive mind, so I don't know if that would work. Hooty made a backhanded comment, but I ignored it. I asked both of them if they would agree to a final roll to determine whether they would fight or not, and they both agreed to this. The roll for the final outcome of the dialogue before any potential fight broke out in-game. I allowed them to say something, and depending on how I felt about it, I granted bonuses. Thorn received a +4 bonus because he made some good in-character points, but because he stayed true to his character, who was a most articulate person, I didn't grant him that much of a bonus. On the other hand, Hooty made an excellent argument and I granted him a +8. However, Hooty lost the roll by a difference of 7. The ruling was that if Thorn had lost, there would be a fight between the two of them. If Hooty lost, there would be no fight. This aggravated Hooty, who went on a tirade about the lore of the Warhammer 40k universe, explaining that in this situation, the lore of the universe is more important than the outcome of dice in a tabletop RPG. Yeah, but I mean, do you really have to ruin it? Because, like, you're just kind of starting up a fight because, oh, it's not lore friendly, but, like, it's your guys' game. Who cares about, like, I mean, I guess lore matters in such sense, but it's a fictional situation with fictional characters that aren't even real. I mean, if you really wanted to keep things within lore, it probably wouldn't make sense for your character to be pulled into this dimension for Monsters and Masterminds game, because that would be very lore unfriendly at that point. Because what if you have like anime or SpongeBob or something in the other lore? I don't even know what other characters they had, but they're characters for like from different universes. I don't think those characters exist in the universe with other characters and stuff. I don't see a Space Marine existing in the same universe as SpongeBob SquarePants or Naruto from Naruto. I literally cannot have a Naruto, SpongeBob, and a Space Marine standing next to each other. It would be such a bizarre concept, and I'm pretty sure that is not lore friendly. None of it's already lore friendly. You're just having fun at the table. Why make such a big deal about it? I calmly assured him that the game is about as canonical into the Warhammer 40k universe as what happened in epilogues from the other players who came from the universe of My Hero Academia. There we go, not Naruto, My Hero Academia characters. They have Deku literally working together to stop some bad guy with the Space Marine, dude. It's already not canonical. It's all fiction. Why does it matter? There was no argument that any of the other players or myself could make that he would accept. I told him that he didn't want to do the roll-off, he didn't have to agree to it, and we could have settled face to face on the battlefield. He then randomly shouted at me, "I
have the power of lore on my side. I have the books right here. Also, while we're at it, I don't like the fact that you hindered my ability to play my character properly.
I asked him what he was talking about, and he brought up the whole thing with the fact that I asked him to stop with the memes every time he saw every weak opportunity to say one of them. Then he pulled out 2 Warhammer 40k books to plead his case. I let him speak, but I still told him that he agreed to the dice roll and what was expected depending on who won. He then demanded that I retcon several moments in my campaign so that events of the epilogue did not happen. I told him no, and he left. He made a blog post about it, but since then deleted it. The guy has lore on his side. Dude, what is this guy? He's literally quoting memes. Is his character quoting memes like in-game as well? Is that what's happening?
I have Imperium and anime on my side.
This guy just way too deep into lore. It's a game where they're mix-mashing a bunch of universes together from Warhammer 40k and My Hero Academia and probably other stuff. Probably SpongeBob and Naruto as well. Seriously, why was lore really matter? I don't think it's canonically lore accurate for a Space Marine of the Imperium to work with Deku from My Hero Academia. It already breaks the lore already. Why does it matter? This guy's making elephants out of molehills. Is that a saying? Elephants out of molehills? I think it is, right? Pretty sure. Anyway, it's ridiculous. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.